So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the one single reason why a $100 rod will be much more expensive in the long run of your fly fishing life than a more expensive rod, and it has to do with false casting. All right guys, today on the Wholistic Fly Fisher, this is a dual purpose video, and it is for the guys that are aging in place with their fly rods, and it is for the new person too, actually, that is not into the holistic thing yet, but will be someday. I am going to talk about why a cheap fly rod is so much more expensive in the long run than an expensive fly rod, but I have to be fair. The rods I have, this is a Sage DS Graphite, and it's an 8-weight, and I got it at an auction for like $100. This is probably a $300 or $400 rod, which is not cheap. I don't know when it came out, don't know much about the rod. Got it down at South Padre Island when I was down there at a meeting. They were having some big auction. So that is gonna suffice for me as an 8-weight, cheap 8-weight with an old action to it. And we're going to try that. It's still got some backbone to it, so we'll see how that turns out. Now, for a more expensive rod, of course, there's plenty of them. You know, when it says fly fishing, it costs more. But we're talking about a $100 fly rod that is plus or minus $50, and that is the retail price, not something you find that's a $700 rod for $100 or something like that. We're talking about a real Temu rod, so to speak. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the one single reason why a $100 rod will be much more expensive in the long run of your fly fishing life than a more expensive rod. And it has to do with false casting. And that's all we're going to do today, is show you some things about the false casting that will maybe enlighten you as to how you can save a lot of expense in the future. What I've done is I've measured off 50 feet that way, and over there is a frisbee. That's just for direction. We're not going for accuracy. We're not going for any kind of casting lesson. That's not what this is. This is about the false cast, and only the false cast, and why a $100 rod affects that so greatly, in my opinion, and how you can have more longevity if you spend a little more money. There's a difference now. The difference is you're all in, okay? A $100 fly rod is great to start out with when you don't know if you're all in. You may like it, you may not like it. It's a question of like expense. You know, burning $100 or $150 on a fly rod that might sit in the corner of your garage for the rest of its life or in the back of a closet, you're not gonna lose sleep over that. And I'm not gonna lose sleep over that either, because you tried it, you didn't like it, and that's that. For the beginning fly fisher who starts with a $100, $150 rod, you're starting with a disadvantage, okay? And that is that the rod, you're gonna have to work a lot harder. Probably gonna have to work a lot harder, without exception. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges, bananas to bananas, however you want to compare. The better rods, I will show you, have an advantage that will make you fly fish, be able to fly fish a lot longer, and lead a more healthy life. And I'm going to show you why. So that's a distinction there. This is for the person who's all in, they're addicted, and they're thinking about their next fly rod, or maybe they know they're going to be addicted like I knew, and I went right off the bat and started spending a little bit more money than the average person, because I knew I was done and it was all over. This is going to be what I do for the rest of my life until I can't walk, can't talk, or can't breathe. So that's the difference. If you're a hobbyist, okay, go get you a $100 fly rod, try it as a hobby, and see how you like it. If you are in it for the long run and you're worried about your holistic life, then this video is for you especially, and how I can show you why a $100 fly rod costs a lot more in certain expenses. We'll get to that if you go that route. So let's take a look. I'm going to back off, show you what I'm talking about. We're going to switch over to super slow motion, and I can show you exactly what's going on. Oh, before I switch over, it's going to be the same reel, the same line, the same leader on both rods. So there's no gimmicks there or anything. This is a sink tip 8-weight line for a Rio fly line, and it's a good line. Sink tip's a little heavier than normal, which, you know, kind of loads the rod faster. But otherwise, fly lines are the one thing that you can use on a cheap rod that would offset the cheap rod. But you're not cheap anymore when you start spending $100, $150, $20, $30, $40 on fly lines, right? So that just defeats the purpose of your $100 fly rod. Let's get started. I'm gonna load it up. I'm gonna start with the quote-unquote cheap rod, and then we'll go to quote-unquote expensive rod, and we'll see which, and I'll tell you which one's gonna cost you more. And I'm gonna keep my casting style the same as well, use a double haul like I always do, and we're gonna try to frame this in a way that is fair to the rod. You can see this rod has I've never thrown this rod before, but you can see it's got a pretty stiff spine, but it goes way down. So that's a lot of false cast to me right there. We got a little bit of wind today that I have to cut through, but not that much. So this is truly a true test of a cheaper rod, older generation rod. It would be cheaper now because it's old, but that's a lot of work, right? You can see that's a lot of work. And here is the reason why it's going to cost you more in the long run to have a slower rod. It's your shoulder, okay? The shoulder is virtually irreplaceable these days. They've replaced knees of my friends and family. They've replaced hips of my friends and family. Nobody's going to touch a shoulder because shoulders are not perfected yet. So that's what we're talking about. Let's get some more of this in here, and then we're going to switch rods. This is actually a pretty good rod, but I'm having to use a lot of energy, a lot of strength, more false cast than I want to use. Extremely accurate rod. Oof. I might not sell this one. Let's lay some more out here. $50 feet is not a problem for me with this rod and this line. You get yourself a cheap Timu rod or fiberglass rod, and you're gonna be working a lot harder with an 8-weight fiberglass than you are with this rod right here. Bang, right on the frisbee down there. 2 more times. We'll show you how much it takes. That doesn't get there. That's a lot of work. So your shoulder is irreplaceable. And that means that whether you get a rotator as you age, whether you already had a rotator when you started fly fishing, bunch of false cast is really gonna cost you in the rotator. And you're working this arm too. So that means a lot when you're doing this, okay? You're working both shoulders. Now the Lefty Kreh style of cast is keep that arm down. Guess what? That works a lot less of your shoulder, and that's why I'm such a one of the reasons I'm such a firm believer in the Kreh cast is because it gives you longevity. And we're about longevity in the Wholistic Fly Fisher in this segment of my YouTube channel. Let's go some more. All right, now we're putting that older rod up against this brand new Sawgrass 8-weight, and of course, if lightning struck me, I would want to have this rod in my hand when it happens, because this is my ultimate fly rod so far in my life, and it's only going to get better. So we're talking holistically, we're talking about fewer false casts to save your shoulders. This one primarily, this one secondarily, elbows, all that stuff that can't be replaced very well right now in the first quarter of the 21st century. So this is a game changer. We're not going to talk about speed. I don't care about speed. We're talking about the false cast, okay? This is a faster rod for sure. It's a newer Graphite. We're talking 50 feet right there, okay? Watch this. Let's see if I can make this work. So I'm stripping in some line, and we're gonna try to get 50 feet. There's about 20 feet out there. Let's see what happens before the rain comes. Here we go. 40, not bad. It all went out, but it wasn't a true 50. So let's try again. Okay, there it goes. People, 1 false cast compared to 3, that's 1/3 the work. If you get 1/3 the false cast, your shoulder's gonna last 2/3 longer than everybody else you know. Think about it. Think about it. This is holistic thinking and holistic fly casting. When you can reduce the number of false casts, you're gonna live longer and fish a lot longer. A lot less effort too, by the way. I'm just barely putting the juice to this rod. So that is the difference between a $100 fly rod, which is gonna cost you thousands in medical expenses, shoulder replacement that never will work, maybe an elbow, who knows, maybe the other shoulder, who knows. This is the difference. It's just that simple. Let's take some looks at it. We'll just go quiet. Man, unbelievable. Unbelievable. $50 feet right there, 1 false cast, 50 feet. Let's do it again. I'll take 2. Effort, effortless. Of course, over time, as rods got better, more expensive rods, they're a little faster. They're better designed though, that's the main thing, is the design is so much better. I just hit the frisbee and I wasn't even looking. So that's that. Let's back off and get a wider shot and see how this looks. So can you see as I'm false casting, the workout that my shoulder's getting, that's where the pain comes first. That's where the arthritis comes first, people. Arthritis is just another name for shoulder. So that's the name of that too. Sorry for my profanity, but golly, I'm seeing a lot of it right now with my family and friends. A lot of worn out pieces and parts. So it's really disturbing and really upsetting to see that with the aging of my family and friends. But if you are a fly fisher and you want to fish for a long time using the holistic approach, you need to invest in a better fly rod once you're in for a penny and in for a pound. That's my opinion. I'm not trying to get you to spend money you don't have. I'm not trying to get you to do anything but take care of yourself. And one way of doing it, right in the frisbee. And one way of doing that is getting a fly rod that is less work, fewer false casts. You get there quicker. You cut your usage of your joints by 1/2 to 2/3. Do the math. This is mathematics. And I'm not good at math. So that's what I'm talking about. Let's finish this up. Guys, just like I said, if you're in for a penny and you're in for a pound, spend a few more pennies on a fly rod. It'll save you a lot of pounds of medical expense in the future. And I'm not kidding you. This is my opinion on why you don't want to stick with a $100 fly rod. You can sure start with one, but if you're in, you're in. You might as well upgrade your rod when it's time, not before it's time, not before you know for sure, not before your wife divorces you. And you know, Sawgrass is my brand, so that is what it is. But A lot of good rods out there, a lot of really bad rods out there. So that's just the way it is. You know, Temu, some of that stuff is pure junk. Okay? So I'm just going to tell you that straight up, whether it's a rod or a reel or whatever. You don't see me buying stuff off Temu like rods and reels. I will if you want me to, and I can show you how sorry they are, but I'm not interested really in spending my money, even if it's $20 or $30 on a rod, just to show you that I can get a cheap rod and catch a fish. That's not what I'm about. I'm about holistic fly fishing and the idea that the rod I hold in my hand on the day I die is going to be the rod that served me well. Period, paragraph, end of story. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this makes sense to you. If it doesn't, say something and I'll be glad to clarify for you about why a $100 fly rod will cost you thousands more than a little bit more expensive fly rod in the long run. We're talking the long run here, okay? You gotta think into the future, not just tomorrow. All right, guys, check out the next holistic video coming up very soon. And make sure you like and subscribe. I appreciate that very much.